All right, with that, I will introduce Brandon Wardyn. He's already answered a few questions. Brandon's out of York area, though, correct? And corn breeder with Pioneer. And so he's going to give you a little insight on the corn side.
All right, thanks. That's why they change up presentations here. Brandon Wardyn, out of York. So very similar to last. I hold a very similar job to last, just in corn. So I have a corn breeding program in York, but I'm also responsible for some of the western corn development. Kansas, Nebraska, parts of Missouri, Colorado, and essentially everywhere west. There we go. So we have about 45 minutes here, right? Yep. So I got a few slides thrown together. I'm going to talk a little bit about some corn revolution stuff, and a lot of it I'm going to get into is kind of my opinions and futuristic view of where breeding's going. Okay, so I'm just going to warn you ahead of time. If we have 45 minutes, I'm only got about 30 minutes of slides, so it's about 15 minutes. And I grew up in central Nebraska, and I lived there. So if we don't if we run out of time, I'm going to talk about Nebraska football, and I see enough purple in the room that's probably not going to be very popular. So think about that as I go through this presentation. There are questions ready, right? All right. So the corn revolution. Hopefully everybody's seen some of the marketing around corn revolution that came out here within the last year. So I'll talk about the corn revolution, but really to me the revolution is really the evolution of corn breeding for the past 10 years. Okay. So how did we get there? Why are we talking about it? All right. So here's a little bit of history. And so Les touched on some of these the planter that we're using right now already. But I use these three pictures. These are the three ways we plant corn in corn research. So the first one was the hand planters. All right. And to talk to the old guys, they said, well, we used to plant 40 acres like that. Reality is they planted about a fourth of an acre with a hand planter. But that was a system for probably 20, 25 years. Okay. Then obviously mechanization came on board, and like Les said, we sat on the back and we dumped packets. When I started in the industry in graduate school, we were dumping packets. Okay. We probably did that for a good 20 years or more. Okay. Within the last 3 or 4, that's where we really got up to the current system. Okay. When we started that system, it got implemented very quick. Okay. So it was about a 3-year transition maybe, and now we're in this new technology. And the point I want to make here is that this new technology thing is happening so fast. That's part of the reason we're getting into this corn revolution, is new technology stuff. So here's the advertisement campaign if you haven't seen it. Funny story, does anybody listen to the podcast? Awesome. I actually recorded one of those. Never thought I would do it in my life. Never listened to a podcast in my life, and then I went and recorded one. Now I listen to a few. I won't listen to my own, but if you haven't checked those out, check them out. They're kind of cool. But, so why are we talking about this revolution thing, right? So the first thing that happened was really what I call a data revolution. All right. So we talked about the planters. When we upgraded that planter system, all of a sudden I would say that almost tripled our planting capacity. Okay. So we could go put a bunch of corn in the ground. So this field right here, this is actually in central Nebraska. You can see up there we got 6 combines out there. There's OTRs, the new Oxbows that let's talk about, there's 6 of them. Okay. I'm old enough, I remember when we got our second one. Okay. That was a big deal, right? Newspaper was out, we were big time, we had 2. Okay. That wasn't that long ago, that was less than a decade ago, okay? Now we're running 6 out there, and this is one station in York. We have stations all over the country. Okay. So what I mean by data revolution is the amount of data just went up exponentially. Over 10x within the last 10 years. This really data ramp up really started, I would say, 2008, 10, kind of that time frame. Probably more so 10, 11, but it just really ramped up since then. Okay. So that's really the first step. Okay, let's talk about just getting more data. Right? What's the second step? Second step was really just saying, how are we going to get better data or more data on top of that? So let's talk about drones. Okay. We're not going to let the soybean guys have all the fun, as corn guys use them too. Right? So the trait I'm going to use as an example is plant height. Don't have to worry about what the accuracy and MTA's heritability are. Just know that green's good, red's bad, higher numbers are better. Right? So there's two traits up here, plant height and plant height underscore RS. Underscore RS is the drone plant height. Yeah. So the way we used to measure plant height, we go out in the field, middle of a cornfield, late July, August, with a big old stick, we put it in the ground, so it's about that tall. We go to the next plant, it's about that tall. We measure X number of plants per plot. Okay. That field I showed you, there's about 20,000 hybrids in that plot, in that field. To go measure one field, it'd take about 30 of us, a week, 8 days. That ain't fun work. I don't know, anybody in here taken corn plant height before? Anybody? Yeah, it ain't fun, right? Yep, I'm not doing any grad school, I'm going through measuring plants. I'm like, really, this is what I'm paying money to go do? Question your intelligence real quick. Anyway, so that's the way we used to do it for years. Now when the drones came out, we started measuring with drones, right? So the first thing is, instead of taking 30 people about 8 days, we can measure that same field in about 3 hours, right? With about 2 people. The other thing, so we're getting more data. Now we measure every plant, every single plant we plant, we measure. The other thing is the data is so much more better. You can see up here the set 1, set 6, set 11, those are just different replications. You can see in almost every case. In fact, I think in this example, every case, the data is better. So now we're getting more data, we're getting better data than we ever had before. So this has really happened within, I would say, the last 5 or 6 years. Okay. The thing with breeding is, if you can, the saying I use is, if you can measure it, we'll breed for it. That's the hardest thing. A lot of what we do anymore is just saying, how can we go measure something? If we're measuring, how do we measure it in a different way to get a better measurement of it? Okay? So that's kind of the next step of this corn revolution thing we're talking about. So, next step, this slide's really about molecular markers. Okay? Because I know a research guy cannot get up and talk without saying the word molecular markers, right? Haven't done it. Ever since 2010, we've been talking about molecular markers, right? Okay. Now the reality is, with molecular markers, we've been talking about them a long time, but I would say it's just very recently that we've really actually leveraged them. Okay. So why is that? First reason is, they've been around for a long time, but they used to be really expensive. Now they're pretty cheap. Okay. I mean, it's on the same scale of like computer memory. You know, if you remember these little sticks, these little things right here, my PowerPoint was on this. Remember back when if you had a gigabyte on one of these, that was a big deal, right? It was a huge deal, okay? Now we don't even think about it. We got phones with, 250 plus on them. That's the same scale in terms of markers and how cheap they've gotten. Markers have become essentially the computer data storage of breeding. Okay? So markers are really cheap. But to really use them, we had to get data and better data. So that's why we needed really the field data to get mirrored with the molecular markers. That's how we did it. Okay? So we had all this data. Right? So we finally got the 2 ingredients. We got cheap markers, we got a bunch of data, it's really good. All right, how are we going to use it? We were all excited. Another little story. So when I started with Pioneer in 2010. Okay? I worked in another company before that, but when I started in 2010, the very first, that fall, I had to make selections on some hybrids, right? So I had an Excel file up there or some sort of spreadsheet. There's 10 columns of data in there. Okay, it's 10. Might have been 10 or 15, I can't remember. Anyway, 10 or 15. Last fall, I'm doing the same exact thing I did in 2010. 9 years later, I have 153 columns of data. Right. I've never been the smartest guy in the world, but I know I cannot mentally comprehend 153 columns of data. Okay. So how do we get there? We have to develop new tools, right? So that's what we did. That was the last really key ingredient there. And that's what really separates companies, I think, is the tools you have to understand genetics, molecular markers, that whole relationship. Because really what we're doing here with markers, we're saying, okay, this little piece of blue, we know exactly how many bushels that's worth. We know exactly what it does to the great leaf spot. Okay. That's really what we're trying to do. We don't have to see it in the field. Right? We just know that's what it's going to do. So let's get into a little bit of this. But really what happens is you have this virtual, this molecular step, then you follow up with some field data, some field steps, right? What we do is we make predictions. We talk about predictions a lot. So what are predictions? Predictions essentially tell us what's going to happen in the future. Sounds awesome. Okay, from a corn breeder, where you are literally judged, you keep your your job based on that hybrid's performance for the next 2-3 years. Right? So put yourself in, and this happens a lot, put yourself in like the breeder situation. I'm sitting here and I'm looking at a plot, and it's, name your trait, say it's gray leaf spot, right? And I'm looking at it and it looks like a 4 to me, okay? Or 3. 3 is a very good score. Looks like a 3, all right? But I got this genetic prediction sitting over here saying, no, Wardyn, you're wrong. It's more like a 7. Okay? What are you going to do? Okay. The reality is it doesn't matter what it looks like right now. We only, as breeders, we really only care what it's going to do in customers' fields for the next 3-5 years. Okay. It's a big jump, right? My job's dependent on this. It looks like a 3 in this one plot, this one field. We have all this other data, all these other years of data points saying it's going to be more like a 7, which is really good, right? It's a big jump. So, as any scientist would do, we had to run some data and say, hey, what's right? So this is a slide I really probably can't show outside this room, but this is the data here. And so really, how we got to that point of accepting it is we said, okay, here's genomic predictions on the green line. What we did is in 2017, we made some predictions, and we actually tested that stuff in the field in 2018. Okay. So we compared that to, we tested it in the field in 2017, we tested it in the field in 2018. Right? What's going to give us better results? So it's a correlation, higher numbers are better, but you can see you've got ear height, plant height, and moisture yield. The predictions were better in every case, and usually significantly better. Okay? So I'm guessing most people don't look at correlations as much as I do, but if I'm going from a correlation of 0.3, or if I'm at a correlation of 0.19, and everybody else in the industry is at 0.3, I don't have a job in a couple of years. Okay? That's the big difference there. In the world of correlations, that's huge. Okay? So if Les and I are going head to head, and he's breeding with a 0.3 correlation, I'm breeding with 0.9, Les is going to kick my tail every single year. So as a breeder, when you see this, you're like, oh boy, we better get on board, right? Otherwise you get left behind. And so really that was the big jump there, okay? I'm saying, yep, we have the technology, we made the tools, now we're gonna go implement it, and we're gonna feel confident, and it's just full speed ahead. We're not gonna hold back at all. So really the whole recap here is, this is the corn revolution nearly summed up in one slide via Brandon Wardyn's opinions. But we got data went up, the markers got cheap, we made data analysis systems. And the thing we did in the meantime that I didn't talk about was we decided, we're going to spend some money and invest in these systems and these places to do things really intensely, like really intense. Let's talk about some of the work in Puerto Rico. We have work in Puerto Rico and other areas around the country in Johnston. We developed essentially places to do intense research on a very small scale. So we don't grow corn in fields, we grow them in pots. Okay. Essentially, it's a way to get more data and better data. All right? Better data, new data, then the predictive power grows exponentially. And that's where we're at. And that's really, the end result is a new rate of genetic gain.